Well, many South Africans view immigrants and refugees as violent and dishonest. The Human Sciences Research Council and Ipsos confirmed this in a survey. It's hoped that this survey will help government and civil society develop campaigns to counter these kinds of misconceptions. Well, let's unpack this. I'm joined by Dr. Stephen Gordon, a researcher with the HSRC. Dr. Gordon, hello to you. Thanks for your time here on Upfront. These are fairly strong words if you read what the Human Research Council's research on this actually is. Using the terms, as I started at the start of my intro, got to do with many South Africans view immigrants as violent and dishonest. It doesn't sound like a very positive review.
Unfortunately not. So what we did is we conducted a survey in the 4 provinces where most foreign nationals live: Limpopo, Gauteng, Western Cape, and KwaZulu-Natal. And we found that in towns and villages in those provinces, people described foreign nationals, refugees, asylum seekers, cross-border migrants, as dishonest, as violent, as fundamentally different from themselves. But we should not be overly pessimistic. What our analysis was able to do was break down the South African population in these provinces into 4 distinct groups. The liberal group, those people most accommodating, most tolerant, most compassionate towards foreign nationals. This is about 1/5 of the population. The judgmental group, those people who are least tolerant, least compassionate, most negative about these groups. Right? This was about 1/5, 23, 24%. Now, in the middle between those 2 extremes are the persuadable people, those people who are concerned about immigration but not hostile towards migrants, and those people who are ambivalent. They have no strong feelings on this issue at all. Now, this, in many ways, is a good thing. It shows that there's a large group of South Africans, about half, that can be persuaded to adopt a more conciliatory, a more tolerant, a more open perspective on refugees, on cross-border migrants.
I'm curious to pick up on that. I'm looking at some of the findings, Doctor, and I would love to have you on all day and we can go through every single finding. I'm sure people can find this online, but the one that stands out for me is finding number 3. This is according to a well-documented research by the World Bank and others. Many people do not understand that immigration is actually economically beneficial for the South African economy. The perception in South Africa is that those who are migrants and refugees are actually taking away from the economy, but this is suggesting it's quite the opposite.
About 2/3 of the population that we surveyed felt that immigration was bad for social welfare, bad for job creation, and bad for the economy in general. But according to the empirical evidence, this is just not true. Not only a World Bank study from a few years ago, but also an OECD study have reached the same conclusions. People coming here, starting businesses, working hard, contributing to the fiscus, paying taxes. This creates economic activity. This economic activity turns into jobs, turns into improved wages, and turns into higher tax returns for the South African government. Indeed, on the whole, immigrants in South Africa put more into our country than they take out. Unfortunately, this does not seem to be understood and accepted by many people in South Africa. They have, unfortunately, a wrong view on this matter.
Well, I was about to ask you about this wrong view. One would even question that it's a view at all. It's actually a misperception and a misconception about what is happening. Further down the findings, and I find this fascinating as someone who works in media, part of the findings is that South Africans who hold an anti-immigrant sentiment generally get their info, I'm not going to go through the whole list, but from broadcast media, particularly radio, and of course we all know this, don't we, Dr. Gordon, the dangers of social media. That's where this anti-immigrant rhetoric is being pushed, however incorrectly. Isn't that so?
Absolutely. But we must remember that while many people might use social media to share these negative stories and to push these negative sentiments, when you ask people which sources do they most trust on this issue, it's the broadcast media which comes through by a large margin. So this gives us a great opportunity because it shows us that you can push back against these negative sentiments using the broadcast media, because this is the medium that South Africans trust to tell them about complex issues like migration.
And just before I start saying goodbye to you, we've gone through the methodology. You've explained that we've gone through some of the findings. Dr. Gordon, the recommendations, one of them that stands out for me here, and it's got to do with social media, it's got to do with mainstream media, broadcast media, is a communication campaign. It refers to cooperation from prominent leaders, but I find this more interesting. Prominent South African celebrities. It's those influencers that are in the hands of most South Africans on social media that could be the people to try and drive this positive message about immigration in the country. Isn't that so?
Absolutely. You know, we want politicians to adopt the correct messaging on this issue and to speak to their supporters and to let them know that immigration is not bad and that these negative sentiments only do damage to our country. But unfortunately, people don't really trust politicians. Survey after survey will tell you that trust in the political class is quite low. But people, you know, they trust popular entertainment figures, they trust sports heroes, they trust their religious leaders, they trust their community leaders. And these are the kinds of people that we need speaking out against xenophobia and combating many of the negative stereotypes, these scapegoating, these false messages that we see on social media and we see in our communities.
Fascinating work. Dr. Stephen Gordon, a postdoctoral research fellow from the Human Science Research Council, holding his phone as well for the entire conversation, dead still as well. Dr. Gordon, thank you very much. Go and take a look at this research that's been done. It's HSRC and Ipsos looking at the drivers of anti-immigration sentiment in South Africa. There's a lot to go through. I only touched on a few of them. If you want to see more of it, go and join the conversation. www.hsrc.ac.za.